Mere mortals attempt to at having good lighting and good audio. Let's see if it actually happens. I'm not holding my breath.
I need you first of all to go and check out the video. First of all, so YouTube is where it's going to be at.
Mm-hmm.
But as you can see, if I duck my head,
got a little bit.
There might be a bit of a spot behind me, but we figured out that if I stay in this exact spot and not move at all...
Once never allowed to move again.
Not allowed to move again. Also not allowed to set up the camera. But if I just don't move, the light's going to be perfect. So hopefully you're seeing our beautiful faces in the right structure. We've got lights going on. We've got the microphone set up.
New camera coming.
New camera. We've got people enjoying our alien podcast, which is awesome. If you haven't checked it out, go do it. I'm going to start us off there.
Okay, yeah.
In this episode today of Meanderings. We're going to meander a little bit all around. 76?
Yeah, I believe so.
76. Now, I haven't fully checked out all the statistics. However, I did see we did an aliens podcast and we had a huge spike both on the
massive spike.
Videos and audios. And I verified it, that the two of them, both audio and video, spiked in two particular states in the US.
Okay.
Now, I can't recall off the top of my head now, but one of them starts with a B. But it's like not like California, not New York State. It was like rural type of states in the US.
I don't even think it was a particular state. I thought there was like a particular city, at least for the audio, where it was like a particular city in a particular state.
You might be right. It might be actually a particular city. But there was a lot of love for the aliens, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think what it was, because usually if we get visited by like a big spike like that, it's because a bot has come along. I very much doubt they're designing bots in the middle of Kentucky, Louisville, wherever it is.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of thinking it's like either one guy who really loves aliens is just absolutely spamming.
Well, it could be. So I just wanted to pull it out. I'm sorry, I just went away. There's essentially three big ones. Bakersfield,
that's it.
Reno, and Hayward coming in third, right? But I also, in YouTube, it's also Bakersfield.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Bakersfield, there's someone in Bakersfield just replaying it over and over and over.
There's a community, man.
The community loves this particular thing. So, definitely appreciate that, guys.
Bakersfield.
Where is this on
So it's a city in California, it reckons. On the Kern River, north of Los Angeles. Nothing about aliens in the immediate population, 383,000. So it's fairly up there.
Yes, we got a couple of views from them. So anyways, cool. I just wanted to kick off with that. So
shout out to Bakersfield. Very
if
cool.
there's any people watching this from Bakersfield, I hope you're well during these times. Let's get going. Let's move along. Have you got any other topics, some interesting things that have happened?
All right. I'll go on to one which happened very recently, which is I'm definitely seeing improvements in the breath holding. So
cool.
I broke 2 minutes for the second time. The first time was the as usual, beginner's luck. We both sort of had that.
Yep.
And I was actually watching another Netflix thing the other night called Home Game, I believe, which is about weird sports across the world.
Yep.
And this one had freediving in it. And do you know what freediving is?
Yes.
Yeah. So essentially, for those who don't, you just hold your breath and try and go under the sea as far as you can, as deep as you can. And there's some pretty crazy people out there who've gotten to like 100, 300 meters. It depends how they do it. Like if they do it with weights, they'll sink really quickly. And then they can have like an assisted up as well.
Can they let go of do they let go of the weights?
So it's called like variable weight.
Yep.
So and then there's non-variable weight. So non-variable weight's where you have to get yourself down there and get yourself back up. And it was sort of showing it, had a bit of a story around it. The main thing was though, these people are insane. They legit crazy, because they're talking about the rules of the game, and it's really simple. You go underwater, you come back up, but you have to prove that you're like still functioning when you come back up. And so
you don't have the bends or something crazy happening to you.
Well, so you get 15 seconds, right? And all you have to do is, I think you have to take off your nose ring and give the okay sign. I think that was like the two rules. There's maybe one other or two others. And then they'll give you points for like, it's like a white card, a yellow card, and a red card. Okay. White card means you did it good. Yellow card means you didn't get as deep as you thought you would. So you don't get the like tag that you pull off.
Yep.
And a red card is when you black out. And so it's got all these videos of people coming up and they essentially go into the state I was describing in one of our latest episodes, where I was having like fits, but they fall back, go unconscious because of, I'm sure there's some sort of very good scientific explanation for it, but like lack of oxygen compression in the lungs, whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, by the way, like sometimes they do it wrong and their lungs like start bleeding. And then so it's like showing someone who comes up and immediately just starts bleeding out the nose, coughing blood. It's like,
excellent.
No, mate.
The other thing as well, I know this from a long time ago. Who knows what the depth is, but all those sort of free diving, when you're almost at the bottom or pretty much at the bottom, the pressure at that point causes your lungs to be 6 times smaller than what they are out in just like a normal sea level. Yeah. So you can imagine just not just the ability of holding your breath, but holding it when you get to the bottom and it's still like that amount of pressure on you and then slowly come back up.
Well, I did, so just a personal story here near Brisbane in Chandler, I think it's called, Chandler Swimming Complex, something like that. They've got deep pools there. And I think I dove down to like 5 meters deep.
Is it a diving area?
Something like that. I just went down and tried
5 meter deep.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I touched the bottom, came back up. The rest of like 2 days afterwards, I just had migraines, headaches. It was, not in a good state at all. And just on my deep dive into the diving community, the guy who got the main record, so he was going for, I think it was like 313 meters or something just insane, or 130, like whatever it is. It doesn't matter.
It was,
it's stupid,
something deep.
Stupidly deep. He goes, gets it, comes back up, and I think he failed because he blacked out at the top. And then afterwards he was starting to say like, oh, I'm not feeling too great. And basically he got like some sort of decompression sickness. And then they put him in like a decompression chamber, like full, the full works, trying to like make sure he's okay. But it turned out he had like 10 mini strokes in the brain while coming up.
Dang.
And was paralyzed for a bit, like couldn't speak, couldn't walk, I don't think. And eventually like regained some movements, but is still like wobbly on land and still isn't at like 100%. So, just an example of those people who are willing to, put everything on the line for that. And it's not even a well-paid sport.
I was just about to say, what motivates someone to be like really good at that sport?
Yeah.
Like I can't fathom what it is. Obviously they've got a reason.
I can sort of get like the pushing yourself as far as you can.
Best you can.
And being the best at
closest
something.
You can be to a seal or something. Like how close can it be? It's interesting because there's not just that, but other extremes where it's like, what motivates someone to really be the best beekeeper in the world? Or
I'm thinking more of the ones where it's like obvious that they're doing damage to their body. So the best, like Wim Hof, swimming underwater in the ice or climbing Mount Everest in shorts. But
things like, the people who have tattooed themselves twice over completely. Like at that point, sure, you're in the Guinness World Records for tattooing yourself 203%. But are you doing this for another purpose? You just really like art? You like it doubling up? Like, I don't know. It's interesting. Those though are the people I think you'd be super interested to talk to because they would just have such different views of the world that you'd be like, wow, okay,
maybe
I never had this view of the world.
They could just be really boring though and just do this one thing as well.
I think they'd have something that drives them for that. Yeah? I think they'd have to be.
What? Yeah, but it could just be like insanity, like actual.
It could be. It totally could be. Now, some of them could be insane, but I think there's some out there that might not be, and might be a reason to have a discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the ones I want to touch base on. So, I've now done my second book review. Hasn't come out, and it won't come out for a long time. Because we've got a lot in the works that are coming. But when the next one comes through, you'll be able to go check it out. I'm finding it. So I've got a bit of a new process on the way that I review my information. So I was noting that, take for instance, one of the latest books I read, which is all around what do you call it? The ambassadors. Yeah, the ambassadors, the sailing of the seas. And it was talking about the 7 great leaders that rode the seas and what you could learn, blah, blah, blah.
The Admiral book? No,
the Admiral
something
book.
Different?
Now, the 7 Seas Admiral something.
Okay.
Long title. Now, I've got that written down somewhere with all of my notes. And then that particular one, I found that I can't really recall much of it. I can recall bits and pieces, how it was structured, what the information it gave.
Yeah.
But it was such a big difference to me how much information I've been able to uptake of the latest book that I've done in comparison to that one, just by introducing a few steps into my sort of like solidifying what I'm reading.
You did just read this one.
It's also that I've just read it. So I also looked back at the Tim Ferriss one, which is a little bit further behind, and even Anne Frank's diary. So I looked at a couple more because those ones I've taken through the process of actually noting it down in my reviews and whatnot. And it's just light and day, man, of how much I can actually recall and remember of, recent books, but even some of the other books that I've taken some notes down, translated them over into a digital format. Now, I could do that automatically by picture and just copy and pasting, but I find the act of having manually written down, rereading it and retranscribing it digitally, almost again a little bit different, that next step really cements it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
It wasn't so much the speaking of it though, which seems interesting to me. I don't know why. So like when I did the video obviously of Haruki's book and just sort of talked about it, but I actually felt like I understood it more outside of talking about it as opposed to like when I actually shared it. And it made me think that if I was trying to teach someone the book or like parlay with the information that I learned, if I had them right in front of me, I would have been a lot better. And I think I would have cemented more information. So I have a little bit of like looking at the camera, it doesn't feel like there's real, like enough, like a person there that I'm actually talking to, that I'm conversing with. And one of the things I was actually looking at was Tony Robbins. So he's taken what he calls like his ultimate experiences. Like he normally has like a 3-4 day event where you get 10,000 people into an area. He presents for like 10 hours a day on this huge retreat kind of style. Like he teaches people. He's taken that online. And so he just recently did it a couple of weeks ago. Now, the way that he did it so to keep himself sort of motivated and to feel like there was people that he was talking to, because like for 10 hours, he's literally like in his room and like the setup is insane. If you think your podcast setup or any audio setup is pretty good, go check out how Tony has set up himself for these 3 or 4 days. It's like insane.
Well, it's not a podcast, so.
Well, yeah, but it's essentially just like an audio. You've never seen such a setup. It's awesome. But one of the greatest thing about it he found was he had the pictures, and I think there was people tuning in through Facebook and YouTube, but he would get the people to actually be recording themselves. And he had this panel with like thousands of people's faces coming through on like all these huge panels. So he could kind of like connect with people and talk to people, and it would like kind of shuffle through all of the people. But he actually said like that was one of the ways that he found it really able to connect, because he found it a bit challenging just connecting to like the camera. So for me, I was like, sure, from a learning experience, I'm learning a lot of stuff, and I thought I would have learned even more at that point, but I didn't. And I reckon it's because I've got a bit of a disconnect between the camera and if I was talking to like you right now. So if I was having this conversation with you, but like over a phone, I think I'd struggle to be able to connect and get it as much out as I would without it.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
Maybe.
Are you finding your book reviews, though, that you're doing are helping you cement more information, or not as much? Or like it's just like you're just discussing it, there's nothing more valuable that you're getting from it?
I'm not trying to cement it, man. So it's,
okay.
Yeah, it's, we've got different purposes. So that question, I guess, doesn't really apply to me.
So what is your purpose of book reviews?
So I suppose it's to find interesting connects between different areas. So I wouldn't have thought there would have been much between Marcus Aurelius and Elon Musk, for example, but they both talk about first principles and that sort of thing. And then that like between meditation and like Western and Eastern philosophy, because it sort of was in both of those. And then I'd be looking at two completely different books. The Therese Rakin, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, and the Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment.
Okay.
Very, very different books, but I found like a similar theme in them, which I found interesting. So yeah, I'm not trying to like, I don't think.
So once you know those connections, or see them more broadly, do you do anything with them, or you kind of just go, okay, cool, I can see that connection.
It's just interesting to note it, but like I think it would be pretty boring and no one would enjoy it if I was the type of person who wanted to remember every single thing from a book, or saying like, oh yeah, no, this is what this character did in this part, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Well, do you remember that famous guy who there would be ads all over YouTube who'd be like, check out my Lamborghini and here's my book.
Ty Lopez,
right? Now, I recently listened
to... Hey guys, just chilling in my garage here with my Lamborghini.
I recently listened to a podcast he did with Jordan Belfort. And it gave me, first of all, gave me a lot of respect for Ty. I actually, I would have thought the same thing. Like, this guy, I'm like, oh, whatever. I'm not going to really listen to him. Dude's awesome. And the amount of info he actually has and what he does now, go check that out. It's actually really interesting. But the way he actually talks is so annoying. And he does it out of, he was talking about this with Jordan. So if you don't know Ty or whatever, everything he says, he always doesn't say it from what he himself thinks. It's what he has read and the meaning behind something else. So if you ask him like, why do you do this? And he'll be like, well, because the great Winston Churchill has said that you have to battle whenever, and he'll pull out like every quote you ever think about, perfect quotes, and he'll just say that, right? And Jordan was like, is that a shtick? Like, why do you do that? And Ty was kind of saying, I've just always done that. It's just the way that I've communicated. Rather than saying his personal view, he'll say it by virtue of like whatever he's read and present it that way, which I think it's good, but I don't enjoy doing that in every single instance. And I couldn't do that. Like, my brain is not triggered like that. My brain would be much more triggered on, like, if I saw a story or a couple of stories, tying them and cementing like those basic principles. Jocko says it awesomely, or Echo. It's when you see the when you see the way in one thing, you see the way in all things. And I think that's actually a Musashi original quote. When you start seeing something in like one particular way, you'll start seeing in broadly everything as well. Which is why, like, it was interesting when you were talking about the connections that you do with that book, where Elon Musk to Marcus Aurelius, that you might, the front surface, you'll be like, oh, well, they're probably completely polar opposite, and they've got something that actually connects them. And it's like, oh, here's something that connects broadly to a lot of other people. Yeah.
So when you're reading a book, do you want to be able to remember dates and facts of things that happened? And because
originally I did. So originally I thought that to learn from a book, you needed to know that in 1945 this thing happened and the bomb went off and this happened and blah 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 blah, and this is the place that they went to.
Yeah.
And I was even getting myself caught up when I was doing my first book review that I've got to know what this person's saying when they went to and page that, blah blah, right? So I think I probably would have had that a lot, especially since I haven't really been putting a lot of effort into how I review my own books and information. But a lot more, and quickly I'm just saying, actually, no, what I want from it is, it's not even quotes. I don't care for the quotes. So I'll give you a really key one because it just happened. Like, I just read it, but I can't specifically remember Haruki's quote in terms of polishing goals, right? I don't know the line. Couldn't tell you exactly what it is, verbatim. But I specifically know that I wrote why I found that particular thing really useful twice over. So I just wrote my first why did I find it useful or interesting? And my second why is why did I even in the first place think about that why? So it helped me connect more internally, like, oh, okay, if I say with that one about polishing, it was to do with, you should polish the things that you care about the most. And I was like, okay, well, that's important to me because I think that I should always be striving to, the big rocks, be always confirming what they are and really polishing them off. So an example here being the podcast. I want to make sure that, the stuff that really matters, maybe the way that we interact or the way that we're talking, to make sure we continue polishing them, making sure that like that goal is always really clear.
Yeah.
And then I had like a second why, like, okay, well, why do I find that important? And then my second why was more around the lines of, well, because I want to make sure that things that I care about are continued, the things that I really value in my life, I can keep continuing and putting enough effort into it, not letting other things slide behind it. So that kind of linking for me, I'm like, cool, that I won't forget. The reason, like, what interested me, how it connected to me, but I won't remember really the quote or where it was or anything like that. Yeah. So I think that's where I'm trying to take the learnings. And actually, so many people do it so differently. It's actually crazy because my initial thing when I was reviewing how to review book, not how to review books, how to take the information from books or other sources. Sure, you can do a Google. There's so many out there. And it's just, I think you have to really find the one that suits you best. Because just because Tim Ferriss does this, or Kyrin, Mere Mortal, Michael Down does that, doesn't mean it's going to suit you.
Yeah, so, yeah. And that's the other thing. You've got to make it, you don't have to make it personal, but I think it is better if you do, because there's probably other people out there who are just absolute experts in like nailing down a book and just giving what it is and then putting that in like the best format. And whereas if you relate it to things in your life, it sort of makes it a bit more interesting in that sense.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, if you're going for that top position of like the person who's the best at summarizing books, go for it. But it's probably a bit harder than personalizing it and saying your
that's
own.
why I think I dislike, not that I dislike, I just don't enjoy the way that Ty does it, because it feels like he's learned these quotes to speak to you about him in that way and showcase it to you how he remembers, which I think he doesn't do it in that manner. But for me, I'm like, I don't care to say like, oh, this is the book I read and whatever happened and la, 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 la. But what I do care about is, actually the other day I was at lunch with someone who loves Japanese stuff and has been in Japan a long time. I want to go back and live there. And the way I kind of connected a little bit with him is like, oh, I just recently finished a book by Haruki Murakami, who's a Japanese writer, and talked about running in Japan and marathons and blah, 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 and this and that. And I went, and it just helped connect it like really well. It just kind of transitioned into using it into everyday life.
Yeah.
I was like, awesome. You can relate it that way. But I'm not going to spit you a quote. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Let's change tack. I want to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Ever since COVID has struck, which now is, 4 months. There's been no traveling.
Longer than that.
More, right?
It's like 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
Closer to that.
Flying. So, and probably about 4 months since all travel's been completely restricted. You traveled a lot about 2 years ago. You had a bit of a hunger towards travel again. Obviously, I don't know to what extent. Have you felt like right now, because I'm going to give you my feeling, do you feel like you're missing travel, or do you feel like this time of being stuck, not going anywhere, has made you want to travel even more? Or it's decreased a little bit?
Nothing's really changed, man. I think if you get too caught up on what you want to be doing, like with the travel, so it depends what you want to do, right? So there's, first of all, are you going to go for a long one or a short one? Is it to party? Is it to, experience different cultures? Is it to learn? Is it to, it can be all these different things. And for one, I didn't have any travel plans, so that helps. Because I know, like a good friend of mine who I met while traveling, she was 1 week away from moving to Bali, and like permanently moving to Bali, and all that just got cancelled, all that got thrown up in the air. So as far as personally, I'm okay. I'm pretty sure the world will be there in the future. Nothing much is going to change. Like it's not like I'm missing out on a once in a lifetime event. That I really wanted to go to or something like that. Because I'd rather just go to places and find out different things. Like there was no one single place in my trip when I traveled where I was like, I have to go there. It was more, all right, I'll sort of find things along the way, and I'll go to this country and okay, I'll sort of take this route, I guess. Like I didn't look it up beforehand.
Just explore it.
How about you?
Well, see, for me, it's actually kind of going a little bit backwards in the sense that before COVID, I was keen to catch up in Sydney with friends, go to Japan with another mate, go to Europe potentially in like a year's time, all this sort of stuff. But now through all this period, I've almost felt a little bit like, oh, is it really needed? Like I'm really enjoying myself. I'm creating stories. I'm creating the things I want to. And it sort of pulled back a little bit from the wanting to go and explore other places. I think it might return once it's available. But, the psyche's a little bit like, oh no, I'm good. I'm even enjoying it. Maybe even just do like inland Australia travels as opposed to anywhere else. That's totally fine. I don't know whether that psyche is really changing, but it made me think of two things. One, where international travel could go. And two, if someone created like a high-tech virtual reality, almost sim style life where you could go into a room like this size, put in like a headset and you're walking on a treadmill and it automatically transport you to like France or whatever. And you could walk around all of France and kind of experience things. Would that be enough of like a feeling
would
and
it
activity?
Stop people from actually traveling?
Yeah, like would that be enough to go like, oh yeah, I've went to France and I walked around and did these things, and sure, you're separating it a little bit from like human to human interaction. But imagine people who are being born like right now, where heaven forbid, COVID keeps on going. But imagine it like kept going for 3, 4, 5 more years, and there's kids coming through now that don't even know what travel is. Like that's not even like that's not even like something they would know about.
Well, first of all, I think you're viewing this from an Australian point of view, which is we're in an island.
Sure, yeah.
People in Europe and whatnot are still traveling. Like they're still going between borders.
Yeah, are they? Are they going at the
I'm
moment?
pretty sure they are.
Okay. I'm not sure. Can't definitively say whether they're allowed to go between borders at the moment.
There's definitely, you're thinking of travel in terms of pleasure-seeking travel.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, shit is still getting from China to Australia, blah, blah, blah. It's still getting from whatever.
Yeah.
So,
here I'm talking like you going to visiting other places around the world for the experience of it.
Yeah. So, obviously, there's way less of that. No, I don't think it will, because it's still the same draw as why people would go to see a piece of artwork in a museum when they could just get a full replica size version, on a screen essentially.
On a TV if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Bigger than you could see the Mona Lisa on a TV that's bigger than the actual Mona Lisa.
Yeah. And like better than it. You get one that's, more high quality, better. It's not frayed around the edges. It's blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But that's not what people want. They want to go see the actual Mona Lisa, the real physical, tangible thing.
Which I'll ask you this question: can you understand why people would want to go to see the Mona Lisa in person over just seeing like a crystal clear picture of it on a screen?
I can understand it. I can't explain it though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, see, I think we've gone on a big loop. It goes all the way back to what we were talking about at the beginning. How it's just interesting you can understand how some people can do things like deep water diving or whatever, but it's just so hard to explain realistically why they would do that. You can't explain that. Same thing with the art. I'm sure someone could explain it on here.
They could get closer to explaining it than us. I'm not going to even attempt because that's not my forte.
We're going to butcher it. Actually, I got one thing. Unless you've got another one that you want to share.
I got a bunch, but
okay. Here's my one. Because we haven't touched this topic at all, and it interests me sometimes to talk about it. Gaming. When was the last time you would say you actually gamed? I'm talking now. I'm gaming in the actual controller playing games experience.
Probably with my brother 2-3 months ago, something like that.
Okay, outside of like with another person,
where it was just me sitting down.
Just you playing a game.
Well, like on my phone, I haven't been able to do that for a long time.
Yep.
Just because, I used to have shit phones. So for those who don't know, phones. I think I had an iPhone 4, a year ago or something. So it was, like 7 years old, 8 years old. I don't know how old. I do remember. Look, I'll remember the last one that I can, which was there was this blob game, something IO.
Yes, yeah.
And you had to like eat other blobs, and you could press the space bar and you split and capture other people.
That used to waste so much of my time. I used to love that game. Yep.
So that was a while ago. That was in 2015, 2016.
Yep.
That was probably like one of the last times where I spent a serious amount of time. And when I say serious, I mean like, I don't know, 20 hours total, something like that.
Well, the reason I asked that was I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of days ago now, and we're talking about people who game and people who don't game. And if you could do everything you're doing right now, if you were gaming, and I just like at the moment, I have no idea how I could fit what I would use to play in terms of games. So all the way back in university days, I used to play Call of Duty on the PlayStation. And I remember playing maybe 2 or 3 hours on a daily basis. Like at nighttime, I'd be able to play. And I'm sure I got really good at that. But I'm thinking about it to now. There is no hope in hell I could ever fit 2 to 3 hours just spare to play some games.
Every day.
Every day. No way. The people out there do. And it made me think, how much are people giving up to play games when their values might not be aligned to gaming? If you want to be the best gamer, you bring so much joy to you, keep doing it. 100%, definitely. But I think to it now, there's probably some people out there who, play games and do other things where it's almost to take them away from just doing all the other stuff that they actually want to do, and like the time sink that could be behind it. And for me, I don't think I've played a sit-down game. Probably more recently, probably 6 months, something like that. But I'm thinking console and sat down for those 2-3 hour sessions. Yeah, a long, long time.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't judge them too harshly like that and saying they're not necessarily wanting to do it. Maybe they're just not aware of how much it is. But like, I hear you on TikTok and shit like that. That's definitely a waste of time.
Yeah.
So, it's more of a degree. It's not like Juan saying he's high and mighty above all of you who get sucked into it and whatnot. My thing has always been like, it's fine unless you realize it's a problem. So if you're fine doing 4 hours a game, 4 hours a day, you're having fun, you're not skimping out on other things, or maybe it's like an active choice, right? So if you're doing 4 hours of gaming a day after work and you're not exercising at all, if you're ignorant of that, okay, that's kind of bad. You probably you need some good friends. You need someone to tell you like, hey, you should get some exercise because it's like
detrimental to whatever.
The only thing that's like 100%, no one disagrees that exercise is bad for your health. But if you're like actively deciding, I'm not going to exercise, I'm going to play this game, like, fine, good.
Yep.
Just be prepared for the consequences of being like
what comes
unhealthy.
through it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's more of an ignorance thing, or if you're unaware of how much time it's actually consuming. Because if you're voluntarily doing it, hell yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think as long as you know the loss of time that you might be putting away from that. But as you say, if you're making an active choice and you can do that, equivalent, like if I'm perusing TikTok or Instagram or anything else, and you're aware of like, oh yeah, I'm wasting half an hour of time, but it's actually like, if you want to call it a useful wasting of time in terms of that you're letting your brain just like chill out and do nothing. Just like if you could go outside and walk, sure. But the multiple hours thing, I just can't, I can't see how that would be at all beneficial.
I reckon I could find an hour.
Unless you're a gamer, like a full gamer.
Yeah.
And you're making like a professional living. Because then it's like there's a little layer like, okay, but what if you're out there and no, you're putting in 4 or 5 hours of gaming every day, and then a year you become a professional gamer. Then that's the limit there. But still, I would say, but then you've always had a priority that you want to become a professional gamer. And then if so, then totally fine. Go and do the 4 hours of gaming. Fit that around because you want to reach that particular goal. But I hell bet there's a lot of people out there who are not wanting to become professional gamers. They just enjoy playing games.
Yeah. I think the problem with you bringing it up, and I'm trying to figure out like why I was trying to defend them for a sec, is I think they get misaligned a bit as far as like, there's so much shit everyone else does. I was doing podcasting. I'm sure there's people out there saying like, you're wasting your time. What are you doing with that?
100%. Yeah.
And I think the problem with gaming is like, it's just the chosen one. So if you had to say like, what do people waste their time on?
Good point.
That's the one. And there's reasons for it, because it is very addicting and because people like to talk shit about kids because they can't defend themselves and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So, well, when I say kids, like, kids are doing the gaming and then other adults do it as well. So yeah, I think they get misaligned a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Why aren't we talking about the people who, I don't know, walk their dogs too far or...
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah,
actually, no. I like the theme of this particular podcast. It's like, it's just hard to explain. It's like, we can explain really easy to each other why we're doing a podcast. Like, sure, the exact details might be a little bit different for everyone, but for us, we could be like, oh, well, we're doing a podcast because we enjoy interacting, because we get to share learnings. It helps us talk about things that we'd already be talking about. Like, to us, it's just a little extension of our normal life of what we're already doing. But to someone out there, they might be like, what do you mean you're wasting 10 hours every week, not getting any money from it, not doing anything with it, not trying to grow it, blah, blah, blah. Like, are you crazy? What are you trying to do with it?
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're probably not going to be able to explain that to you because you're aligned to maybe thinking of other things or prioritizing other things. Just like if I tried to sell you on the fact of training 2 times every day for a couple of weeks just to see what happens.
Yeah.
Many people are going to be like, no, that's nuts.
Or going out three nights a week to drink.
Sure.
Or,
some people will be able to like validate and explain why. Some people are not going to take it.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I got nothing else.
Cool. Now let's leave it there. I don't...
to meander away, what can people expect from the things that are to come? I want you to tell us what's coming in the future. And then once that gets the juices flowing, where can they find us?
I'm going on holiday. That's what's coming in the future.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Kyrin is departing us for a little while. He's
got a 5 or 6 day break coming up. But don't be worried. We're still coming out with daily content.
Now, you might be asking how we're going to do that. Magic.
That's it.
That's right.
A little bit of pre-recording as well. But just go to everywhere. Look, hit me up on Instagram. That's my tip for today.
Okay.
Hit me up on Instagram. I'm pretty quick. One of us is pretty quick at getting back. Yep. I think like between...
I am not a quick replier.
No?
Well, not a quick replier during like... If you're trying to hit between 9 to 5 on a normal Australian day, I'm fairly busy doing 1,001 things. I'm probably not going to get very quickly. Outside of those hours, I'll be a little bit quicker. So.
Yeah. See, I think like just between us, because we use the same account, probably one of us is going on it like, I don't know, at least once every 2 hours, something like that.
Yeah, I'd say something like that.
It'd be pretty close to that. So you probably get like a heart at least.
Yeah.
And then maybe maybe a comment a little bit later.
Yeah. Good. Now, everywhere else as well.
Everywhere else.
YouTube, Spotify, all the audios, all the videos. Check out, if you just want to just see what we look like, you can also see it on Instagram. So check it out there.
It's true.
That is all for today. Juan out.
Kyrin out.